Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here. Um, I'm going to be talking to you about using social media after a brain injury today because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm just going to share my screen with you so that I can talk to some slides for you. But as Lexi said, please feel free to pop comments or questions in the chat and I'll try and keep on top of them as we're going through and I'm talking. But before I start, as Lexi said, I'm actually in Australia and it's customary here to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are. And so I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from unceded Ku-ring-gai lands today and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians of these lands, recognizing that they're continuing to connect with the lands and waters and culture all around us, and pay my respects to the elders past and present, and acknowledge the traditional owners of the country in which you're all joining me from in Iowa, and pay respects to their elders as well. As we know, an acquired brain injury is often really sudden, can be extremely traumatic, and I think this picture really visualizes it in a way that words can't. And in rehab as a speech pathologist, often my focus is on supporting people to build their social communication skills, and that's with different people and in different places. And so these days, one of the big places I feel like we need to consider is social media. The active number of social media users continues to grow each year, with around 60% of the world's population now using social media every month. And on average, those social media users have about 7 different social media platforms that they're using all of the time, or at least have accounts on. So just what is social media? And there's heaps of different definitions in the literature, but essentially social media are internet-based applications or software that lets people generate content, and it allows people to collaborate and connect and interact and build community online. And it means that people can share information and news and content with one another. And there's, as I said, there's lots of different definitions, but I quite like this breakdown of social media into 6 different categories, and because there's so many of them. And so first of all, there's things like blogs, so like WordPress and things like that, and collaborative projects like Wikipedia and stuff. And they're often mostly text and writing, and they have pretty simple exchanges of social interaction. So your users aren't really interacting a lot. Okay, but then you've got things like social networking, like Facebook and Twitter or X, and content communities like YouTube and Tumblr, for example. And they have text-based communication, but they also share pictures and videos and all different types of media. But there's lots more interaction between the people that are using platforms. And then lastly, there's virtual social worlds like Second Life and The Sims, or virtual game worlds like, I've put a couple of examples there, like World of Warcraft and Roblox and stuff. And they kind of replicate more face-to-face interactions, but it's in a totally virtual environment. So I thought I would ask everyone here what sort of social media platforms you use. And I've got this Menti here, so you can use the QR code. You just sort of use your phone and scan that code and pop your answers in, or feel free to just put them in the chat. You can see I've already put mine in. So as you can see, I have accounts on Facebook and Instagram, Mastodon. I do quite like different online games. I have a TikTok account, but I mostly just watch TikTok. I don't make TikToks. I have a Twitter or X account. I use WhatsApp all the time. And I use YouTube all the time, both to watch and also creating videos. And I have a couple of other different ones. I'm just going to pop back and hopefully this will refresh so that I can see everyone's responses. I'm just going to click this here and make sure it'll refresh for everyone. There we go. So I can see that, yeah, most of us have Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and yeah, Pinterest, right? I used to have Pinterest and use it a lot, but I think I've moved more to Instagram now than Pinterest, but I quite like it as well because I can see things and I can see a couple of people have Snapchat. I feel like I'm maybe a bit old for Snapchat. I didn't quite get into it, but I'm sure my kids will tell me all about it. So you can see we kind of have quite a few just between us. And I can see in the chat Nora's put, you know, Facebook primary and a little bit of Instagram and YouTube. Yeah, I'm kind of the same, I've got to say. So, you know, there's lots of advantages of using in social media, and we know it can create connections and we can use it for entertainment. But yeah, it can also be a huge source of information and news, sometimes false information, but lots of information. And it can be really like wonderful to use it to share information and also advocate for greater awareness. So I wanted to know what you use social media for. Again, it's just a little Menti here, and you can feel free to use the QR code or pop it in the chat. And you can see I've kind of put my responses in beforehand so I could talk to you about them, but I use it for just filling time a lot, I've got to say. But probably the big one is connecting with people. So whether that's staying in touch with my friends or connecting with other colleagues and asking them questions. I also, you know, use it to share the research that I'm doing as well. And then I'm just going to refresh this. Hopefully that'll pop up. Yep. And definitely use it for entertainment and following a few people. I can see that, like me, people connect with others, use it for entertainment, definitely filling in time, following people and news and watching videos. And I can see in the chat, Nora's kind of mentioned those things, connections and content and advocacy. And yeah, I love the random watching of videos. Absolutely. So, you know, when we look at what people use it for just broadly around the world, you can see keeping in touch with people, so using it for connection remains the number one reason people use it. They want to stay connected and they also want to fill in time a little bit. So, you know, using social media could be, you know, of huge benefit for people after a brain injury in terms of accessing information, but also in particular for social participation and being included. And when I did my PhD a few years ago now, we really found that after an acquired brain injury, people can find using social media quite challenging in terms of using it really well and safely. And there's quite a few reasons that, you know, we've observed and people have described to me that kind of sort of explain why it's challenging. And if we think about it in terms of our cognitive communication after a brain injury, there's lots of difficulties that people experience in face-to-face conversations, so those in-person interactions that also can influence our online interactions. And this isn't like a full comprehensive list, it's just a couple of examples. But if someone has trouble with stopping before acting, so controlling those impulses. We can see that online when if you get sent lots of friend requests, you're just accepting them. And so you're friending everyone who sends you a request. Or it could be that you're posting or responding and commenting before you're thinking about what you're saying and the potential repercussions of that. Or it could be that, you're oversharing, and or being insensitive to what someone else has said, or clinking a link before you're checking on it. And so all of these things can make it challenging from a safety perspective. And also it can change the dynamics of how people interact with you online. One of the other things that people talk to me lots about is managing feelings, so controlling their emotions. So quite a lot people talk about feeling really overwhelmed with information that's on line, or just there's just so much to scroll through. They can get really overwhelmed. Particularly if a lot of the content is really negative or sad in some way. And so it can be really hard to work through that. So after my PhD, I kind of wanted to know if there was any training available that could really support people to build their social media communication skills and use social media, in a really nice, safe and positive manner. So that we could address all of these challenges. And so we conducted a scoping review, and we identified kind of what components likely should be in training, but we didn't actually find any social media training resources that were ready-made, that were immediately accessible or relevant for people with a brain injury. So after that, I kind of went, well, we need to make something, obviously. And we started creating social ability. And this is part of the Social Brain Toolkit, which is kind of a suite of resources that we're developing in the Acquired Brain Injury Communication Lab here. And I'm presenting this on behalf of quite a big team of us that have been working on this. But social ability at the moment is a free online self-guided program. And so it's designed for someone who's had a brain injury to work through themselves. And the idea is to support them in learning about using social media or relearning and connecting with other people and staying safe while doing it. And when we designed it, we kind of collaboratively designed it. So we had a PhD student at the time, Petra Abramovich, who's since become a doctor. But in her PhD work, we asked people with a brain injury and other stakeholders, so clinicians, family members, to help us design a prototype. Okay. And so we got everyone to kind of tell us what content should be in it and how it should be presented. And we kind of made something up and then represented it to them and said, what do you think? And they told us what they thought was great and not so great, and we tweaked it and things like that. And once we kind of had this prototype, we got 4 people with a brain injury to test it for us. And, overall, they thought it was a really valuable resource. They found it, was acceptable, but they also found it really engaging. They thought it was really functional and practical, and they had, they were able to access it and work their way through it. We didn't find any change in how often they were using social media, but their confidence improved in using social media. And they were talking to us about stuff like they were more aware of how and who they interacted with in social media. But I knew that doing this by yourself is probably not going to be the best in terms of achieving great outcomes for people. And so we know from other experiences in rehab that group intervention and practice can work wonders, basically. So we wanted to know if adding in practice and peer support would change things for people. And so we did a very small pilot study, and we combined the use of this social ability program with a social media practice group. And so in this study, people with a brain injury were given access to the social ability program and encouraged to complete it. And then they were also invited to join a private moderated Facebook group to practice their social media skills and communication with us over 12 weeks. And in Australia, we have Brain Injury Australia, which is kind of the peak organisation for support after brain injury in Australia. And so we had a moderator from Brain Injury Australia join myself and a colleague, Dr. Rachel Redake, in supporting that peer support group in Facebook. And so I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the social ability program itself. So it takes about 2 to 3 hours to work through, and the content kind of covers these 4 modules. So what is social media, staying safe in social media, how do I use social media, and who can I connect with in social media? And one of the things that came through in the collaborative design was cyber safety was a really big concern for a lot of people. And so we've threaded that through all 4 modules, even though there is one specific module that focuses on staying safe in particular. And in the modules, there's a combination of simple written information, and we've incorporated, trying to use lots of white space and pictures to help people get through the information, and simple accessibility features like being able to change the font size or the contrast on the screen to help if people have difficulty seeing the information on the screen as well. There's also videos that are spread throughout, so it's not all just written stuff as well. And for each of the videos, we provide a transcript so people can come back to it and access that information in different formats as well. There's questions for people to work through, and most of these are kind of centered around really practical examples of using social media, so that's really relevant. And there's also a printable worksheet that people can, print or just keep on their device and write down and keep the key messages of the 4 modules to really support trying to remember what they've worked through. And there's prompts like this one on the screen now to prompt people to use that worksheet throughout the program. In the peer support group in Facebook, we wanted to give people heaps of opportunities to practice their social media communication skills in a really safe and supported way. And so we developed kind of a 12-week program of topics just to discuss, and it included like a combination of conversation starters and practical reminders. But at least one post per week across those 12 weeks was really focused on, how to use social media aspect or a safety related topic. So we ran 2 groups, and across those groups we had about 16 people complete the intervention with us, and we collected lots of data around using social media and their enjoyment of it and things like that before they started, immediately after they started, and then again 3 months later. And overall, they thought it was really valuable resource, and they found that that group component was really beneficial. They found that, being able to practice with others was feasible and acceptable, but also really engaging for them. Similar to the pilot study, we found that there wasn't any change in how often they were using social media, but they also experienced improvements in their confidence and enjoyment in using particularly that Facebook group for social connection. And after running those two groups, we wanted to know whether completing the intervention with a peer-led group would changing outcomes. So, you know, having a group that was run by people who have a brain injury rather than me who hasn't, for example. And so we asked two previous participants who were active contributors to the groups if they wanted to come on board and be co-researchers with us and be peer moderators in our third group. And so we've just sort of submitted the paper writing up the results of this, but we ran this group over 8 weeks instead of 12 weeks, just to make it a little bit more feasible for our peer moderators, based on their lives and what they felt they could contribute. And we had 7 people join us in this group. And similarly, they did the social ability program and joined the Facebook group. But this time we had the 2 peer moderators. Myself and Rachel were still there in the background in terms of supporting that Facebook group, but we totally took a step back and got Jimmy and Scoop, our peer moderators, to kind of lead the discussions and everything. And before we started, we met with Jimmy and Scoop several times to kind of negotiate their roles and how they thought the group could run, what they had observed from their experiences, and incorporated that into kind of a guide. We talked about what they felt comfortable doing and what they didn't feel comfortable doing. And so we really figured out how Rachel and I could support them and hopefully make it successful. Okay, and so we came up with this guide and sort of an 8-week plan where we prepared 2 weeks in advance the posts that we would use to generate conversation and engagement, but also who was going to do what. So it was really clear, you know, what I was going to do versus what Jimmy or Scoop was going to do, and those sorts of things. We didn't see any big changes in the quantitative outcomes, but everyone again found that it was, you know, feasible and acceptable and engaging. And the role of the peer moderators in the group was pretty significant. It was commented on by everyone. They found it was just highly relevant. All of the participants found that they were able to relate to the peer moderators in ways that, you know, were really beneficial to them, but also the peer moderators themselves, Jimmy and Scoop, were just like, this totally helped my confidence and it's changed my ideas on who I am, and being able to share in that space and help guide others. The peer moderators got so much from the group, as well as the people that were participating in it as well. So I've put the QR code on this slide, and basically that'll take you to the link that's at the bottom of the screen there. And that actually is where the social ability course is. It's available for free. You just sign up with your email, but you can access it and kind of come and go as you please kind of thing. Because I mean, I don't make any money from it. It's just there essentially. And I thought, now that I've kind of talked you through the background of it, I could answer any questions about it you might have, or I could actually just show you a bit more about what's in the program. So I thought I'd pause there for a moment. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and gauge interest, but if you want to pop in the chat, maybe what you might like me to do. stop and answer some questions or keep going and just sort of talk you through some of the content that's in the social ability program. I could show you some videos and some screenshots of what's in the program. It looks like that might be the way forward. So I'll do that. Okay. All right. So there's these 4 modules, and I might just start with the first module, but if there's one of these modules that you'd like me to cover in particular, feel free to put it in the chat, and I can flick through the next couple of slides and just cover a few different things for you. Okay. But in terms of what is social media, okay, so this is one of the overview pages, so you can see kind of what is in this module. And so you can see, I'm just going to move my mouse so that I can show my cursor on the screen, hopefully. So you can see there's what is social media, who can you ask? So find a social media buddy. There's a quick guide to popular social media apps. Why would you use it? So thinking about purpose, and then thinking about which social media might I like. So not every social media platform is going to be everyone's cup of tea. As we saw, we each use different ones, and probably we all use them slightly differently and at different times. So I used to like Facebook, and now I'm not really a Facebook user lots. And I probably use Instagram and Twitter or X more, but I still have it. And so in these, there's different things. So what is social media might be a video, and then who can you ask? Finding a social media buddy is a short little quiz that asks people to think about, okay, who in your life could support you in social media and be kind of a resource person and things like that. So this is one of the videos in the what is social media module, and it kind of prompts people to consider why they would use social media. So I'm just going to press play so you can watch this video.
So why would you use social media? There are lots of different reasons. Some platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn are made for social networking. You can interact with people and catch up on news and events. Blog platforms like Reddit and Tumblr let you discuss topics in more detail. Some platforms like Instagram and Pinterest are made for sharing photos. And some platforms like YouTube and Vimeo are made for sharing videos. Other platforms like TikTok and Snapchat let you play around a little bit more with the photos and videos that you post. So, why would you use social media? You may want to find information. It could be on brain injury or on things or people you're interested in. You may want to catch up on the news and see what's happening in the world at the moment. You may want to see what other people are doing by watching funny videos on TikTok. You may want to have fun watching videos on Facebook or YouTube. You may want to share about your life or interests. You may want to just share photos of your life on Instagram without having to add too many words. You may want to connect with people you know, your friends and your family. Or you may want to connect with new people who like similar things to you. You may want to connect with organisations that could help you. or to find support from people who are also living with a brain injury. There's quite a few Facebook support groups, like those run by Synapse and Brain Injury Australia. You may want to speak about your passions, for example, brain injury awareness, politics, music, or climate change. So, what do you want to use social media for?
So that's just an example of one of the videos in the What is Social Media module, just to get people thinking about what is it that you really want to use social media for. So you can sort of target the best platforms for that so that you get the most enjoyment out of using social media, and it's not just something that becomes challenging if you're using different platforms and not the reason that you want to. And this is an example of one of the short quizzes that we have in the program. And it's not so much to quiz on knowledge, it's more about getting people to think about how they might want to use social media or how they could get support. And so this one is, who can you ask, and finding a social media buddy, so to speak. Okay. And really, it's just saying, who could help you? Who could be a support person? And so you can see, question one is, who are people in your life that you like and you trust? Okay. And so it could be someone in your family, it could be someone, a friend or a rehab therapist, and just thinking, okay, who are the people that you like and trust in your life? Could they be people that could support you in social media? Okay. Again, we have these little prompts so that people can write these things down as well. Okay. And then this next one is going, okay, so you've thought about these people that you like and trust. Do any of them use social media? Okay. And, then it's kind of going, oh, if you don't know, then suggesting, well, why don't you talk to them and see if they actually do and have that conversation? So prompting people to talk to people about social media use, because sometimes using social media is that real private thing, and we don't always talk to people about how we use it. We might share or send messages, but it's not necessarily something that we talk about how we do it. So it's prompting to people to have those conversations as well. So then sort of saying, okay, do they use social media, and what social media platforms do they use? And, if you don't know, it's a great question to ask them, essentially. Okay. So then the next question is, what social media platforms do you want to know more about? So really getting them to think about which platforms they're interested in. And they can, there's a whole big list. You can just see the first couple there. But it goes through and identifies which platforms do they want to learn more about, and that might help target them into, well, if the people I know don't know much about these, maybe they might know someone else who does, and we could investigate that a bit more. The next question kind of goes through, well, what do you want to know about the platforms? Is it how to use it? Or is it how do I connect with people? Or is it how do I create posts? Or how do I connect with different organizations? Or is it more that you're worried about staying safe, or other reasons? And so really thinking about, okay, what is it you want to learn how to do with regards to these platforms? And then the last question in this little quiz is, then going, okay, now that you've thought about this, which person do you want to ask about how they use social media? And so it might be, oh, I don't have anyone to ask. I need to find someone. Or, oh, this person uses Facebook and I want to ask them about all my privacy settings. I'm going to go and ask them. And then, so that's my mum, for example, or, but I know my friend uses TikTok and I want to know more about how they use it. So I'm going to go and ask them about that because I think that would be really interesting. And I've not gone into TikTok yet, that sort of thing. Okay. So that gives you a bit of an overview of what's in that. How do I use social media module? Okay. And in terms of the staying safe in social media module, it's kind of similar. It's got, a couple of sections where there's videos, a couple of sections where there's a little bit of reading, a couple of sections where there's short quizzes that are all really designed to get people thinking about how they use social media. So again, it's not about testing knowledge. It's about getting people to think about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what they could do in future. So you can see here, there's, quite a few things thinking about, the footprint that you leave online and how you manage that safely. There's a couple of components here that focus in particular on around online scams and how to pick them, and being really careful with your data and information, your private information in online spaces, and also navigating negativity online. So trolls and online drama and what to do if something negative does happen. Okay. So I thought I'd share with you one of the examples from the program from the Staying Safe module. And this is an example of one of those videos, and it's talking in particular about what trolls and online drama are all about.
Online drama is when someone mentions you or responds to you in a negative way. When you're attacked online for posting your opinion, it's online abuse. One of the downsides of social media are the trolls and haters that are online. Online hate and trolling is a big issue. A social media troll is someone who deliberately says things to start fights or upset people. They often say something controversial just to get a rise out of people. A lot of negative and nasty comments are made. A lot of the comments have nothing to do with what's being discussed, and they can be personal attacks. Other people tend to join in quickly once they see a comment, adding more hate and sometimes threats. Lies and rumours can spread like wildfire online, and it's not always easy to know the best way to respond. Whether you're directly involved or not, it's always best to try and stay calm and help diffuse the situation if you can. You can take some simple steps to calm online drama down. Don't engage with the trolls and haters. Instead, try saying something positive or change the subject. If you feel like you might be tempted to respond in a negative way, turn off your notifications and leave your phone somewhere else for a while so you can concentrate on other things. Reach out to the person being targeted and send them a message of support. Even if you don't know them well, sending a message to make sure they're okay can have a huge impact on another person. You can block trolls and report them to the social media site and encourage other people to do the same. Some people have separate accounts for different areas of their life. For example, they keep their personal life and working life separate by not linking their accounts on social media. If the negativity is too intense, take a break from social media and connect with friends privately. If the drama is getting serious, reach out for more help. Speak to someone you trust who might be able to help you out with the situation. We can all play a part in looking after each other in social media.
So that just gives you a bit of an idea of some of the content that we provide in the Staying Safe module. And again, it's taking examples from things that have happened in real life and trying to give people ideas on how they can navigate it. And similarly, this is one of the little quizzes in the online drama sections, and it follows on from those ideas of, lies and rumors can spread really quickly online. And it's not always easy to know how to respond. And so this is a bit of a scenario that's based on a real life example that gets people to think about, well, what would you do? What would you say in this situation? And gets them to think about that. And then, when they've responded, we kind of offer suggestions of going, yeah, that sounds good because of X, Y, Z. Or you might want to think about saying something like this because the other person may respond negatively or something like that. So we're giving them some constructive feedback based on how they're responding. So you can think about consequences, basically. And this is another example of one of the questions in that online drama quiz. And again, it's not written down this time. It's actually got the screenshot as well. So, this is what someone's posted, how would you respond? And so it kind of goes, if someone did this, how would it make you feel? So it's, also getting people to think about not just how they're going to respond, but also how they might feel if someone said that to them and things like that, so that people can really think about how they're going to respond to others, but also maybe start thinking about how others might be responding to things that they're posting online as well. Okay. The other two modules are how do I use social media and how do I connect with in social media. But I'm just aware of the time, so I might flick through to the how do I connect with people, unless someone's got a really burning desire to see that. But I can always show you later. But so this is some of the content that's in there. Who can I connect with in social media? And again, you can see there's a combination of videos and some simple written information and some short quizzes for people to kind of work through and start thinking about who they want to connect with and how they're going to go about doing that. And I thought I'd play you one of the videos out of this module. And this is really talking about, the different types of people you could follow or connect with.
In social media, you can connect with people all over the world. So, where do you start? You can start by connecting with the people you already know. You can start with family and friends, the people you're closest with. Then you can connect with other people you've met in real life. If you've met someone at an event or in a class, you can connect in social media and keep in touch. Next, you may want to follow people you don't know in real life, but you're interested in them because of what they do. For example, if you're into music, you can follow your favourite musicians. If you're into politics, you can follow politicians and stay up to date on what they're working on. You may want to follow organisations that you're interested in or that are working for a cause you're passionate about. If you like to stay up to date on what's happening in the world, you could follow news organisations. If you want to know more about brain injury and events that you might be interested in, you could follow brain injury organisations. Sometimes you might not know who to follow. You can find people who are talking about your interests by searching with hashtags. For example, if you're into swimming, searching #swimming might find you people or organisations you'd be interested in. Sometimes following too many people can get overwhelming. You might want to keep your social media community small. Or you might want to follow a larger group of people and organisations. Shape your social media network to make it a good fit for you.
So again, it's just offering some slightly different ideas around who you can connect with and how you might do that. And one of the quizzes in that section is, who's in my social networks now? And so, thinking about who you connect with now, and then who you might want to connect with in those online spaces, and working through that a little bit. And I suppose that kind of brings me aware of the time. So I'm kind of wrapping up a little bit here. So feel free to put any questions in the chat. But, this is just a small part of the work that I've done so far, but there's still so much that we don't know about supporting people to use social media and just interact in these online spaces. And so at the moment, we're developing an assessment tool, and it's really to help clinicians support people in figuring out what their goals in using social media might be and what areas they're finding the most challenging, as well as where their strengths are, so that we can really leverage those things. And then we'll be working on designing an intervention program so that we're giving clinicians some tools as well, because at the moment there's not much guidance out there. And then if you're interested, we've got quite a few publications in this space. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, but I can see Caitlin's popped a question in the chat. And how might individuals with acquired brain injuries find out about this program? So I'm going to put in the chat, I'm just going to put the link to it for you, to social ability as a starting point for you. I'm just going to get the link so I can put it in the chat for you. And so that's one way here. Okay, so I've got that in the chat. So if you click on that, that should take you straight to the social ability course, and it gives you a little bit of a preamble about what it's all about, and you can sign in there. Most of what I've been doing is word of mouth. So like I'm talking to you today, Courtney invited me to come in and talk to you because she thought people might be interested. So please feel free to tell others about it. I share quite a lot on social media itself, so I try and give updates every now and again, but also people can just get in touch with me as well. I'll put my email in the chat as well. Just make sure I haven't put a typo in there for you. So my email's there as well. So people can just get in touch if they want to know more about it, and things like that. But yeah, word of mouth is probably a big one. So I've been trying to catch up with lots of clinicians as well as people with brain injury so that more people know about it, because hopefully by creating some resources for people, it'll make things a little bit easier to navigate. That's my hope anyway. Were there any other questions from anyone that's here? I suppose one of the big things that I've come across since I've started working in this space is that it feels like both people with brain injury and also clinicians who work in rehabilitation with them don't feel like there's lots of guidance around this, and we're all kind of figuring it out kind of through trial and error a little bit. And so a lot of the work that I'm trying to do is to create guidance and resources that are freely accessible for people. A bit like social media itself, you know, we can freely access it. So I feel like the supports should be freely accessible as well, so that we can all use it for the benefits and try and mitigate the risks of being in online spaces as well. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of some of the stuff that's available around supporting people to use social media after a brain injury. And I wanted to say thank you very much for joining me and having me in to talk.